Welcome back to the Bilge Brew Show. I'm Nate, Navy vet, RN, coffee roaster, and the guy who can explain pressure brewing while still somehow spilling water directly next to the sink.
I'm Mason, and I'm here because Moka pot people are intense. They act like it's a sacred object you have to earn.
That's because the Moka pot is simple in design and brutally honest in results. When it's good, it's awesome. When it's bad, you'll know immediately.
Before we talk technique, I want the origin story. Who made this thing, and why does every Italian household seem to have one?
The Moka pot most people mean is the Bialetti Moka Express, invented in 1933 by Alfonso Bialetti, and it basically changed home coffee in Italy.
So, 1933. That's newer than I expected.
Same. It feels older because it's been in kitchens forever and the design barely changed.
Okay, explain the name. Why Moka?
Bialetti says it's named for Moka in Yemen, one of the famous historical coffee trading ports, so the name is basically a nod to coffee's older trade routes.
So it's Italian engineering with a Yemen name.
Exactly. Coffee history is international whether we want it to be or not.
Now, what is a Moka pot mechanically? People call it stovetop espresso, but it never tastes like my espresso machine.
Because it's not espresso. A Moka pot pushes hot water up through coffee using steam pressure, but it only reaches around about 1 bar-ish, while espresso is around 9 bars.
So it's pressure brewing, just not espresso pressure.
Right. Think of it as a concentrated coffee that lives between filter coffee and espresso in strength and texture.
That actually helps. It's not trying to be espresso. It's its own drink.
Exactly. And once you stop demanding espresso out of it, you start enjoying what it does well.
Give me a weird history detail. I want the obscure stuff.
One of my favorites is the laundry inspiration story. The design is often linked to an old washing setup called a lessiveuse, where heated water would travel up a central tube and spill over laundry. Same basic idea as water being pushed up and through something.
So, the Moka pot is basically a coffee version of an old school washing machine.
Pretty much. It's a household hack turned into a coffee icon.
What about the shape? Why the famous 8 sides?
Bialetti even has a story about the silhouette inspiration for the iconic shape. And the point is, it was designed to be practical, stable on a stove, and easy to hold and pour.
Okay, the mustache man. I see him everywhere. Who is he?
That's L'omino con I baffi, the little mustachioed man. And Bialetti says he was created in 1953 by cartoonist Paul Campani with Max Massimino Garnier, inspired by Renato Bialetti.
So, it's basically the owner's face turned into a logo.
Yep. And Bialetti notes the mascot got a big boost from Carosello TV advertising, which helped cement Moka culture in Italy.
That's honestly genius branding for something as basic as a metal pot.
Also, it's so recognizable that museums treat it like industrial design history. The Moka Express is literally in MoMA's collection.
That's wild. Your grandma's coffee pot is a museum piece.
Exactly. It's one of those objects that's both ordinary and iconic.
All right, now the part people fight about. How do you brew with a Moka pot without turning it harsh?
First, you treat heat like a dial, not an on/off switch. Medium heat, steady pace. And the goal is a clean extraction, not a violent boil.
People always say don't tamp. Why?
Because you're not building an espresso puck. If you pack the basket tight, you restrict flow and pressure behavior gets weird. Most modern guides explicitly say, don't tamp in a Moka pot.
Okay, what about water? Cold versus hot in the base.
A lot of current best practice advice is to start with hot water so the coffee grounds spend less time sitting in a warming metal funnel, getting cooked before extraction really begins.
So, preheat water, then assemble.
Yes, carefully because you're handling a hot base. But it helps keep the brew cleaner and more controlled.
What grind size are we talking?
Usually around medium fine, finer than drip, coarser than espresso. Too fine can choke and push harshness. Too coarse makes it run fast and thin.
And when do you stop it?
When you hear the sputter and gurgle at the end, you're basically done with the good part. A common tip is to pull it off heat right as it's finishing and cool the base to stop the last overheated water from blasting through.
So, the end of the brew is where a lot of people accidentally ruin it.
Exactly. The finish can be the difference between nice concentrated coffee and Why does this taste like a burnt pan?
You said you weren't going to do the burnt thing again.
Fair point. Let me say it this way. The end of the brew is where harshness sneaks in.
Better. Now, cleaning. People have strong opinions.
They do. The main idea is, don't let old coffee oils live in there forever, and be cautious with aluminum and harsh detergents. You want it clean without stripping or pitting anything.
So, after all that, what is Moka pot coffee best used for?
It's great straight if you like intensity, and it's great as a base for milk drinks when you don't have an espresso machine. It's also a strong travel brewer because it's just stove plus pot.
Now you're going to say the Moka pot is trending again.
It is. Mainstream coffee media has been calling out a Moka pot resurgence, partly driven by social platforms and the fact that it's cheap and works.
Okay, coffee choice. What coffees actually shine in a Moka pot?
Moka pot tends to reward coffees with body and structure because it concentrates everything. A coffee that feels thin as drip can taste hollow as mocha.
So, give me a practical recommendation, not a lecture.
If you want a Moka pot coffee that feels like it was made for the method, Bali coffees, especially the Bali Blue style lots of people know, are a strong match because they often bring syrupy body and spice notes that hold up when concentrated.
That's the segue. Now do the subtle product plug.
Subtle and useful. At Bilge Brew, our Bali Blue single origin is called Bilgewater, and it's one of those coffees that naturally plays well in mocha because it doesn't get lost when you concentrate it.
Okay, but you promised a brief history of Bali Blue. What is it exactly?
Bali Blue is a common trade name you'll see for Arabica from Bali, often connected to the Kintamani Highlands, and it's frequently associated with Indonesia's wet hold processing tradition, which can influence body and that classic Indonesian profile.
Wet hold, that's giling basa, right?
Yes, and one reason you'll hear blue in the name is that some sellers connect it to the darker blue-green bean color associated with wet hulling and Indonesia's humid processing realities.
So the blue isn't a flavor note. It's more like a processing and appearance nickname.
That's the common explanation, yes.
And Kintamani is the big region people mention for Bali coffee. What's special about it?
Kintamani's coffee got formal recognition through a geographical indication, often referred to as Kintamani Bali, officialized around 2008, and organizations like CIRAD describe it as a major success story for coffee GI development in Indonesia.
So Bali coffee isn't just some island coffee. It has an official protected origin label in that region.
Right, and that GI work is tied to organizing growers and protecting the name and identity of the coffee.
That's actually cool. It's like wine logic applied to coffee.
Exactly. It's a way to say this place, this product, this identity, and protect it.
Okay, bring it back to mocha pot brewing. If I use a Bali Blue like Bilgewater, how do I not mess it up?
Use hot water in the base, don't tamp, keep heat moderate, and pull it off as it finishes so you keep the sweet spot and don't extract the harsh tail end.
And if someone says mocha pot always tastes too strong,
dilute it like an Americano or use less coffee intensity by choosing a slightly lighter profile. Mocha is concentrated by design, so strong is the point. You just decide how you want to drink it.
I love how every coffee argument ends with, "It depends."
It does, but Moka pot is one of the few methods where a couple of rules really do carry most of the weight. Heat control, no tamping, and stopping the brew at the right moment.
Give me one more obscure mocha pot fact before we wrap.
Here's a fun one. Bialetti's own storytelling treats the Mocha Express as basically unchanged since 1933, which is rare. Most kitchen tools get redesigned constantly, but this one hit the mark early and became the standard.
And the mustache man showing up later basically turned it from a tool into a character.
Exactly. The pot became a symbol, not just a brewer.
All right, wrap it up, like I'm about to brew.
Moka pot coffee is a 1933 Italian invention that brews concentrated coffee using steam-driven pressure, not espresso pressure, and it became an icon in both kitchen culture and design history.
The brew stays clean when you don't tamp, control heat, start with hot water, and stop the brew before the harsh finish takes over.
And if you want a coffee that naturally fits the mocha pot lane, a Bali Blue like our Bilgewater is a solid pick, with roots tied to Bali's Kintamani region and Indonesia's distinctive processing traditions.
That's it. Brew it steady, don't wrestle the heat, and we'll see you next time on the Bilge Brew Show.